Welcome back. If you've been following this series in peer counseling, there's a lot of information out there, so I thought it'd be helpful to summarize it and also give you a caution using the metaphor or the acronym of a KISS. And we'll take a look at some of these slides and show you what I mean. First, using the acronym to kind of summarize, peer counseling is simply when one of your peers, not necessarily somebody of your same age group, but from a peer group, family member, a co-worker, neighbor, sports team member, somebody from the Girl Scout troop, Boy Scout group, church, whomever, comes to you instead of a professional counselor. Now, why would they do that? Because they trust you. They feel that you know them, at least more than a stranger. There are many different reasons they might come to you. Trust is a big one. Another one is they feel that you know them well enough to be helpful to them. They respect you. So don't be too scared at the fact that they're coming to you for consolation, for advice, for some direction, to vent. Many different reasons that people come for counseling, but they have entrusted a gift to you, and that is a concern that's on their heart. So take that for what it is. It's a gift. And peer counseling means that they consider you one of their peers, and that's a good thing. We see also that good peer counseling helps the other person experience greater self-awareness in order to express greater self-management or leadership. In other words, the process of peer counseling, not just what you tell them, because peer counseling is not necessarily advice, but how you talk with them helps them to experience more self-awareness of who they are, what makes them tick, what makes them hurt, why are they concerned about this topic that they have brought to you, the way that you talk to them, the techniques that you use, and we'll get into some of those later. I've already given some. The entire experience helps with their self-awareness, because ultimately they're going to walk away from your conversation and begin to live their own life again. And you want them to have more tools within themselves, not just your information, but a greater understanding of the depths of their own soul and mind. And that awareness can give them options for choices. That greater awareness can lead to the expression of greater self-management. Now that I know these things or understand these things better about myself, I see that option B is better than option A. Or I'd never thought of this option C. And they begin to manage themselves or lead others in more effective and helpful ways. Lead their own families, their work teams, their Girl Scout or Boy Scout troop, a sports team, whatever they have responsibility for or whomever they have responsibility for. And all those things can come about through simple conversations of respect and insight and trust and co-laboring and co-journeying together. Remember, peer counseling. Not that we are better or smarter or stronger or anything else than them, but they've trusted us, and we want to help them with their self-awareness and their self-expression. Make sense? All right, now that's the acronym of the KISS. Let's move on and take a look at a literal or metaphorical KISS in a form of a caution. A level of vulnerability, which is asking about or revealing struggles, is essential for good peer counseling. However, it can also invite misplaced intimacy. Now, what does that mean? That means coming from you or from them because you're dealing with levels of vulnerability. Maybe this person's opening up for the very first time about how hurt they are by something a family member said years ago, and this has been bottled up, and they've never talked to anybody about this before, and now that past relationship, which is really the problem, maybe that person's moved away, maybe that person won't talk to them, maybe they're deceased, but for whatever reason, they're opening up to you. And if they have a positive experience, they can project onto you the face of that other person, and that can go any number of ways. they can get fearful. I can't handle this. I don't want to talk about this. And they can project onto you that fear that no matter how well you may be handling the situation, they are getting really, really anxious and nervous. They could project anger onto you because they're thinking of that other person and beginning to treat you like you are that person. They could project great sadness onto you. And these things can be normal. In fact, they are normal in an abnormal world. It happens. But you need to be aware of it so that when you see it happen, you can help them to talk more about that person or that topic, so you're not diverting attention away from yourself, but you're redirecting it back to where it should be. So to help them clarify what the real concern is, that past relationship. Or maybe it's not a past relationship. Maybe it's their current boss, their current spouse, one of their kids, the neighbor that lives right next door. But they could still, and we're talking about transference and countertransference. You can look that up on the net. I'm not going to take time to go over that with you. But intimacy and vulnerability can bring about misplaced intimacy in the peer counseling. That's why it's so important that we have proper boundaries for ourselves. Take a look at this next slide. Having specific boundaries in peer counseling means that we decide where, when, we counsel, what topics, etc., etc. Some of those boundaries you need to decide beforehand. For example, if it's male and female and there's a potential for some type of attraction there, physical attraction or emotional intimacy that you know is going to be improper, have it in a more public place, out on a park bench where everybody can see you, or in your office with the door open, or at least in a room with a window where people can see that nothing's happening. Or in a food court where you can talk softly and quietly, but people don't hear what you're saying, but they can see that nothing's going on. So the where of it, the when of it as well, that you can say, hey, I'd love to talk to you. I've got about 30, 45 minutes during lunch, so that by you saying that, it doesn't turn into 2 and 3 hours because you didn't set a previous timeline on it. So how long it happens, but when it happens as well. Not super late at night, not in your own home unless there's somebody else there that can make sure it doesn't turn into something inappropriate. Whether that's turns into a physical, romantic type thing, which would be inappropriate, or it turns into anger and other things that can be inappropriate. So setting those boundaries ahead of time can be very helpful. Also, in the counseling, you can say, wow, I really respect you for the way you're opening up to me. Tell me what's been helpful to you so far, because we've got about 10 minutes left and I need to go to another appointment. That lets them know positively that you are concerned about the relationship, you're concerned about them as a person, you share the concern about the topic, but you're reminding them that there's a boundary there. You can do the same thing on the frequency of how often you meet. If this has been helpful to you, I'd be glad to meet with you. Maybe next week sometime we could do this once a week for a while until you feel strong enough to begin to talk to that person on your own. Of course, I can't do this forever, but I'd be glad to meet with you several more times. What's a good time and place for you, and we can kind of sync our calendars. All those are boundaries in the moment, and you also need to enforce those boundaries. If they begin to go over time, or they show up at your house, or they're becoming more intrusive, and this is to help them. This is not because you don't want to help them, but you need to enforce them by saying, or you can push away in your chair and stand up and say, I'm so glad to see you wanting to grow like this. My respect for you is just increasing. And begin to walk toward the door and say, I'm looking forward to the next time we might be able to talk. If it gets more intense than that, you may need to say, Tom or Sally or whoever you're talking to, I'm so sorry, but we really need to stop. I've made an obligation that I have to get to. And if the person really has some strong boundary issues, don't ever lie to them. Never lie to them, because you want to maintain that trust. But you might want to set up an appointment afterward so that you can legitimately say, I've got to be somewhere in 15 minutes and it takes 10 to get there. So that you know you're setting up a boundary with somebody that has already proven they may have boundary issues. Hope that makes sense to you. 2 different types of kisses. Hopefully that keeps it short and simple on what peer counseling is, and also reminds us of the importance to have boundaries, not just to protect ourselves, but to help the other person grow in appropriate ways. See you next time.